The fans do that for us, you know, because our fan community for Horror Nights is so passionate that they inspire us to want to do that. So even when we're, like this year, where we're revisiting properties that we've done, in some cases, multiple times in the past, there's always that desire to, like, what can we do this time to make it that much better? And so I would credit that to the fans. I think that they're the ones fueling our fire.
Well, you know what? That's a really good question. We've had so much experience from the past. That's how we kind of like challenge each other, is like from our experience, and as well as really like looking at other horror films and other horror television shows and other properties and such, looking at seeing what they're doing, and you know, most things now are for like practical effects, and that's like circling back around actually. You know, that's how we're challenged of also live action, and also trying to like create like these environments that our guests go through, like these practical effects involved. Most of that is done with puppetry. Most of that, you know, with blackout performers that are like controlling like big puppets behind the scenes, like we've done that in the past, or as well as performers, in costume gear as well.
We definitely listen to the fans, and through social media. I mean, you don't have to solicit their opinions on Twitter. They're going to send them to me constantly. So you always pay attention to what people are saying they'd like to see at the event, and I think if I strictly listened to them all the time, we would do Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface and Michael Myers every single year, because that's always one, properties that you hear over and over and over again. But I think as we get to the rest of our announcement season, I think in particular the fans are going to be even more psyched than they are right now, because the ones coming up I would characterize very much as fan favorites and often requested properties. So, and they're ones we haven't done before, so I think they're going to be really fun.
Say EVP, Alien vs. Predator, trying to bring an alien to life in the shape and the way that they are, more of an insect type character, and trying to create that with puppeteers and blackout puppets to come to life actually, and as well as the Queen, and trying to make this 18-foot Queen actually move and come to life. And we did with 3 blackout puppeteers behind the scenes, 1 controlling head, 1 controlling each arm, and she was just essentially a huge distraction. And sometimes we use these puppets and sometimes these characters as distractions to see, and which we had put her in a situation that you have to walk right up to her and right by her, and to me that was like putting her in such an awe position that we would have an alien that was in a full costume come out and scare from the side actually. So I mean, that's how we set up some of those scares and some of the ways we deal with the effects.
They're all tough in different ways. I mean, obviously last year Crimson Peak was particularly challenging because of Guillermo del Toro's production design. I remember when Chris and I saw the film, and we saw it, oh gosh, probably 6 months before it ever came out, and I remember just being like stunned by how gorgeous those sets were, and thinking, wow, I know Chris is really good at what he does and translating movies to Horror Nights, but I knew that was going to be a particular challenge. So scenically, that one was particularly challenging. Alien vs. Predator, building the Queen, that was a huge challenge. But there's, The Exorcist is challenging. Probably, I would say in a lot of ways it's the most challenging, but in a different way. Not necessarily scenically or even, design-wise for characters. It's challenging conceptually. Because when you boil that movie down to its essence, it's pretty much a movie that takes place mostly in the same room, involving a 12-year-old girl that never gets out of bed. And that inherently isn't like scary when you think of live horror experiences. So it really challenged us. I remember when we got the rights, we finally got it, I was so psyched, but immediately after being psyched, I was terrified. And I remember going to Chris and going, oh my God, this is going to be, you know, because even though I'd wanted to do it for all these years, I never really had a concept for how to do it. I just wanted to do it. And then when we sat down to do it, we fell back on that trailer. That was the first thing I showed Chris, and I went, this is the philosophy for the maze, and I think when you go through it, you'll understand what that means. Because it's the only movie that truly terrifies me, personally. There is no other movie that scares me like The Exorcist does. I think it's growing up in the 70s. I remember there's a specific trailer for The Exorcist. They call it the banned trailer because it got accused of subliminal imagery and they yanked it back in the early days. But I remember, you know, as a kid in the 70s, and I would have been 6 when that was around, they would show it during the daytime on television. It's not like, you know, these days. I mean, you know, there were like in between commercials for Marlboro and booze. You know, they would show, you know, like trailers for The Exorcist. And I remember seeing that trailer as a kid, and it just giving me nightmares for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I didn't see the movie until probably high school. But I remember I saw it like at a party, and I remember driving back home that night and just having this overpowering feeling that I was going to look in my mirror and see either Reagan or Pazuzu looking back at me. So I've always been terrified to even try to do the maze, but it just took a really, really long time to secure the rights to it.
We really try to vet everything concepts that we come up with. We R&D stuff as well, so we just haven't pushed, you know, nothing quite yet, you know, too far, you know, so.
Imagine a world where butterflies run on batteries. Imagine an education system where an entire semester of coursework is downloaded directly into the student's brain in the blink of an eye. Every lesson, every subject, every student, total recall.